What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. I am your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. Watching my back, as always, the Freddie Mercury puppet. We are back with another incredible episode. It's what we do here, folks. Before we go any further, let me address, as I do every episode, the elephant in the room. You're looking at the smoldering good looks, the luscious blonde locks. So I will confirm for you what you're thinking. Yes, it's true. You're looking at the one and only love child of one Diamond David Lee Roth. Now it's out there, and we can move on. So, before my guest gets in here, I'm going to give myself a look, make sure the coif is in order. Rockstar good looks, check. And I'm excited about this episode. Very excited. I'm decked out in my Death Angel t-shirt, my favorite metal band. So I'm really pumped for this episode. Before we get down to it and before my guest gets in here, I will do the obligatory promotional spiel because, as you know, like I always say, if you have a podcast, you got to pimp it. The pimp hand is feeling very strong today. So here we go. Make sure to tap into Pod Scum on Facebook. The page is Off the Couch Boxing. And, well, I'm going to go into my promotional spiel later because my guest is here. So I am going to get down to it. I'm excited, man. Here we go. Caught me right in promotional mode, but that's all right. Damien. We will get him. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Are you laughing at Rockstar hair? Because I don't know if you know or not, man, but I'm the only, I think, love child of David Lee Roth.
Is that so?
Well, I don't know. Through years of litigation, I'm trying to prove it, yes, but it hasn't gone well so far.
All right. Good luck with that.
I'm trying. I'm trying, man. I just want a little smidge of that 1984 money. That's all.
That would be nice, eh?
So far up at this point, he's been a pretty deadbeat dad, though. I even just went and saw him do his solo thing. He came to my area here in upstate New York. Was not good. Was not what I wanted it to be, I guess.
Results may vary, huh?
Yes, yeah. But I'm super happy to have you on. I'm decked out in the shirt today, man. You guys are my favorite metal band, man. So over 300 of these, this one's special, man. I'm excited about this one, man. Really. So thank you.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Thanks for supporting us over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And so usually with these things, I like to kind of start at the beginning. So like a lot of artists, did you grow up in a musical household? I hear that sentiment with a lot of artists growing up with a lot of records playing.
My sister played piano when I grew up. It was like classical piano. She had recitals. She hated it. And as soon as she could quit, she quit. But we did have an acoustic guitar around the house. No one really played it. But once I started getting more interested in music, it was one of these things I would kind of it was a puzzle I tried to figure out. And then eventually I had a buddy up the street who actually played guitar and got me onto the idea of getting lessons and things like that. But more importantly, the stereo was always on at our house. We always had, we called them ghetto blasters back then. We had a ghetto blaster in the garage. We had a ghetto blaster in the kitchen. We had the stereo system in the family room. Every room had a radio.
Yeah. The good old days. The good old days. Yeah. The good old days when you could walk down the street and bop one on your shoulder. Yeah.
That's right. You just turned it up louder when you had chores.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm 52 years old, so I remember the ghetto blaster era. Yeah, I remember it fondly, actually. You know, I mean, and so particularly the bass guitar, though. Is it an instrument that you chose, or did it kind of choose you? Because obviously, a lot of guys get into music. They want to be the front man. They want to shred. Sometimes the bass isn't always deemed the most glamorous of the instruments. While extremely important, some kids aren't necessarily drawn to it. Did it kind of choose you?
I think it was a little bit of both. And that when I started deciding I wanted to play an instrument, I was loving music more and more as I was getting older. So as I was getting closer, a friend finally just said, you know, why aren't you playing music? You play sports. You should play music. So it was at that point where I was like, that's a good idea. And when you play sports, you size up your position on the field. Like, you know, am I a forward? Am I a center? Am I a guard? And so I took that same approach when I decided to play an instrument. I was like, well, I know I don't have the personality to be the life of the party. So I'm going to rule out being a front man. I already know there's 1,000 guitar players, so that's going to be too competitive. And I know my family's not going to deal with the drummer. So I think the bass playing is the right position for me.
They weren't going to deal with the drumming, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't in my family. Just nobody in the neighborhood was going to allow it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think my son got to the point where he only brought home the hockey puck to practice on, and it didn't really go any further than that. But I was supportive. But you know, a lot of kids, you know, right out of the gate they're on fire, and then it doesn't really go anywhere. You know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
And so what was your upbringing like? How early on, you know, did you tap into the fact that you were going to do music as a career? Was there anything else on the radar, directions you could have gone in?
Well, it really wasn't on the radar to be a career until it became one. Until then, it was something I always did after school. As I was in college, it was something I did on the weekends as opposed to going bars. I just play things. And then once I linked up with Death Angel, I was like, oh, hey, this could be a career. But until then, I was kind of just free floating a little bit, you know?
Okay.
Life wasn't too certain about, you know, which direction I needed to go. I was doing a little bit of college. I had a day job that was doing pretty good. That was offering me promotions. And then I had gigs every weekend doing like corporate things or original acts. So between those kind of three things, I was kind of just waiting to see which one panned out best for me, you know?
Okay. And so on the Death
that was not the most exciting story, but that was the truth.
on the Death Angel website, it does say that you out of the gate you took an interest to drawing.
That was one of the first. As a kid, that was the first thing. My father was an artist. Not only he did acrylics as well as pencil. He did all kinds of, as well as made models. He was a super creative dad, and sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd just be doing art projects. So I picked up, I think, drawing from him. And then of course I love comic books at that age, the Marvel. This was when like Jim Lee was really taking place, and Spider-Man had just launched the Spider-Man series, so that was Todd McFarlane. So I loved drawing from an early age. But at some point, I think it's the same thing with a lot of people's first passions. At some point, I still love drawing. I still love art, and I have probably more an appreciation for animation now than ever. But I gave up drawing. Okay.
And an obsession also early on with Bruce Lee. Safe to say.
Oh yeah. So one of my best friend's stepfather was into martial arts. He did. He had some like military training as well as doing. I can't even remember what they call it because there's so many. It wasn't Muay Thai. It was Taekwondo.
Okay.
So, when you're a kid and you got a stepfather who's or a friend, he was like a stepfather to me too. When you got an older fellow who's into those things, he was also into shooting guns. He was into camping. He played guitar. He was just an all around super cool dude. And so when you have a buddy who's willing to do martial arts with you on the weekend, of course you're going to take him up on that. He had nunchucks. He had the whole bit. And he's also a guy who kind of taught me about being responsible. He's one of the first fellows who, would encourage me to go after, to take interest in women. He was the first guy who adult guy who tolerated me to cuss around him, things like that, because I used it in the right ways, right? Everybody has an older figure who's like, well, if you say damn, crap, or shit because you stubbed your toe, that's perfectly normal. But if you just go around saying it all the time, you're going to sound stupid. So he was that fellow for me. So I got interested in the Bruce Lee from that, watched the films. And then the film, The Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, which didn't even feature Bruce Lee, but just told a story. When you're a kid, that shit is just fantastic.
Yeah. Kudos to that movie. That is a great movie. Yeah, the guy playing him did an amazing job. You almost forget that you're watching an actor playing him and you're not actually watching Bruce Lee.
Yeah, Jason Scott Lee did such a fantastic job in that movie.
Yeah, incredible. So is martial arts anything that you kept up with in life?
I wouldn't say I'm not actively with it, but there's times when I go through when I'm traveling on a tour, I'll have buddies who are like, oh, let's go do some Krav Maga, So when there's an opportunity on the road and people are like, hey, you want to go do some boxing? I'll be like, let's go do it. I'll show up at the gig with a black eye. It's fine. Let's go have some fun.
Oh, I love that because on my channel, I actually do two separate podcasts. The other one is a boxing podcast. So, so I talk to a lot of musicians and a lot of boxers. Those are the two worlds I kind of swim between.
Yeah, playing music, playing a show gets you pumped up, having an audience, but then getting punched in the face gets you pumped up too.
Absolutely. So, so would you call yourself a boxing? Since we're on the topic of it, and I do a boxing podcast, would you consider yourself an avid fan of watching combat sports? Sports in general have changed so much, and that so much of it has become technical. At some point, you watch a boxing match, you're like, well, technically it was a perfect match, but it did go to the judges. You're like, nah, I want to see people knocked out. Yeah. Yes.
So and some of these personalities are too much. I'm not going to name names, but I think we all know the over the top personalities in the mixed martial arts world. But
Sure.
I really enjoyed it probably 15 years ago. I'm not trying to sound like an old head. I really enjoyed these things when they are more in their infancy. Now that they're these big betting sports, basketball's the same way. They're these big betting sports. I don't feel like the games are pure because there's so much money in it. It's not pure. You know
I
what
know,
I mean?
I know. I just had this discussion with my son the other day, man, like about the current NFL, and I just keep trying to tell him, and there's that generational gap where it's just like, this isn't the NFL, the watered down football that I watched when I was young. You know what I mean? Like where there's a flag every play and you can't hit anybody anymore or celebrate or anything.
I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but I know football, they're concerned about the health of the players,
Sure.
but with that much money, man, I'll take some hits to the head for a 7-year career to be good for the rest of my life. I'll
Yeah.
take one. When I say I'll take one for the team, I mean, if I got a little brain damage, but my family for generations is taken care of, hey,
Yeah.
man, that'd be my cross to bear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when you get into the base, I'm sure you've been asked the influence question a bunch of times, but are there a couple names you could throw out there that you feel like have had the most impact on your playing?
There's gonna be somewhat surprising, but when I first started playing music, I enjoyed Metallica and I liked Pink Floyd. So I would be lying, as average and overlooked as he is. I would be lying if I didn't say Roger Waters influenced me as much as Cliff Burton. And then shortly on the heels of that would be Geezer Butler and Steve Harris, and then shortly on the heels of that would be Victor Wooten and Doug Pinnick. So.
Right out of the gate, were you already into extreme metal, or did you kind of acquire the taste and gradually discover stuff that was heavier?
It was a gradual thing. It was the 90s. I grew up in the 90s. That's when I got to make my own decisions and things like that. So I completely missed the Headbangers Ball on MTV. And I grew up with Top 20 Countdown, which was also the Top 40 Countdown.
Yep.
And so that was like a hodgepodge of stuff. It's hard to remember all the influences, but you could go from Weezer to Metallica to Nirvana to Tupac. And for me, they were all right, although hip hop was definitely the big thing. So it was hard to find support for rock and alternative music growing up because everybody wanted to be a gangster. White kids wanted to be gangsters, black kids wanted to be gangsters, Latinos wanted to be gangster. It was the in thing, baggy pants. So it was really hard to find support. And it was really because I found Metallica, Soundgarden, and the heavier bands on the Top 20 Countdown that I started getting a little bit more confidence to go down to the Sam Goody store and buy those albums.
Right.
And then there'd be times where it'd be like a toss-up. Do I buy the new Snoop Dogg album or do I buy the new Metallica album? And my mom was a rocker, so she would always push me towards the Alice in Chains versus the Dr. Dre. If I came in with the Dr. Dre, I said, I didn't have enough money for the Alice in Chains. She'd be like, let's go return that album. We'll get the Alice in Chains album.
Wow.
Yeah. So once that happened, I was able to discover more of the music. And then getting into high school is a more diverse crowd. And then that's when I found people who were like, oh, dude, it's cool you like Nirvana. We like Nirvana too. Or it's cool you like Metallica. We're into Rush and Black Sabbath. So I found a couple buddies that made it more easier to go that direction. And then once I started gigging, that's when I really found the extreme scene, things like Exodus and things like that, the heavier of the heavies. I mean, I found Metallica and things related to that, like Deep Purple, Megadeth, anything kind of on that surface level of the metal. But it didn't get deeper till I really started gigging. And I found Merciful Fate through Metallica and then joined Hail Satan with Will Carroll, who's in Death Angel with me. Hail Satan was a Merciful Fate tribute band, and then that bursted it all open. And that's kind of when people started coming to me and be like, oh, have you heard Exodus? Have you heard Testament? Have you heard all these other bands? I'm like, whoa, this wasn't on the Top 20 Countdown.
You're right. They considered that you were a California kid, though, man. So, were you not even aware of the legendary Bay Area scene?
Not at all. Really? I mean, I grew up an hour north in Santa Rosa of San Francisco. So, once I got a car and was able to go to San Francisco, I was mostly seeing national acts that would come through, Rush or King Sex was one of the first ones. And then when I found some friends as I got older, maybe I'd find something like Cannibal Corpse or Deicide was coming through, and I'd kind of giggle at those shows,
Yeah.
But I didn't really realize that there was this Bay Area, the thrash scene, and until I was probably about 22 or 23. And I'd say, between Matt Harvey from Exhumed and Will Carroll, I was, I had no decision but to find out about the scene and the history of metal in the Bay Area and in general.
They made you immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, association leads to assimilation. So being around those dudes, it just absorbs stuff.
Yeah. And so obviously touring is a big part of what you guys do. just being a musician in general. Do you like that aspect of it? Obviously traveling, a lot of people love traveling, but then I hear a lot of musicians on here say, when it gets to be a certain amount of weeks in, you're kind of like, okay, enough is enough. The itineraries, that kind of stuff. Where do you stand on touring?
Ultimately, like I love putting my foot down and doing as much as I can because I love traveling. I love seeing the places. I try to take opportunity to meet people, who maybe aren't not too fans, but you can actually develop a friendship with. I love meeting people, and there's just so many incredible things in the world. So I love traveling. I love playing for audience every night. You really get the beat. Every night explodes into a show, which is as good as it gets. But I do understand what people are saying, and we joke about this a lot, in that the last 5 days of any tour is 5 days too many.
Yeah.
It could be a 3-week tour. Those 5 days were too many. Everybody's holding the line, being polite and being courteous throughout most of the tour. And then when you kind of see the end in sight, some of the pleasantries just start to fall to the side. You see it in sight. You're kind of getting tired of maybe holding your tongue, and you just let little things out. And so it can go on too long, and especially if you do something like Australia, Southeast Asia, Latin America, those are going to be days where you're waking up early, you're on a plane every other day or every day. And so you just got you're constantly rushing to wait between, you got to rush to the venue, you got to do your sound check, you got to play the show, and then you got to wait at the airport because you got a 2-hour layover. So if that goes on for like more than 3 weeks, I don't see how people could just keep a positive attitude on that little sleep. So there is a sense of having too much touring going on. I could go either way. I appreciate having 1 or 2 kick-ass tours a year and be able to enjoy my life, but I can also go hard and go 6 or 7 months a year. And I always just try to keep a good attitude either way about it.
So how are those decisions made amongst band members, figuring out the itinerary? Is that a conversation everyone gets together and has to correlate this with everyone's lives?
Well, with Death Angel, we all kind of set aside and make sure, this is also our livelihood, so we prioritize it when there are gigs. There are agents, there's booking agents, there's band managers, and then there's point guys within the band that kind of communicate in a trickle down effect to whoever needs, everybody down to the crew. So a lot of that is kind of just technical logistic stuff that goes on at a business level with a bunch of emails that not everybody needs to be concerned with until there's something concrete or looks like it's about to be confirmed. Usually we get notice about tours coming up and shows coming up, no less than 3 months away, usually about 5 to 6 months away.
Okay. Yeah. And so you've been in the band since 2009. You know what I mean? So at this point, what's your role in the creative process when Death Angel creates new music? Is the band very collaborative? Obviously Rob and Mark have been there since the very beginning. OGs, whatever you want to call them, original members. So where do you guys fit in as, I don't want to call you newer guys because you have been in there a long time. You and Will came in around the same time. And I know Ted's been in there for 20 plus years now too. But so where do you guys fit? What's your role in the creative process?
Yeah, so many bands at this point, it's not like we got together in the garage and jam like we did when we were in high school. As much as we all wish we were doing that, it ends up being a very pragmatic process these days. I think for a lot of bands, the first time I was blown away was hearing about how Meshuggah didn't even jam their album. They just recorded it in separate parts and put it together. And I remember this is probably 15, 20 years ago hearing Meshuggah do that. And my mind was blown by that concept.
Yeah, that's crazy.
15, 20 years later, it's more or less getting to that point for Death Angel, just for pragmatic reasons. Mark does got Kerry King. I live in Mexico. It's not practical to have everybody in the studio at the same time when they're trying to get the drum beats figured out. So usually what happens is Rob and will really work out the arrangements and the beats and make sure that they've got some really solid skeletons worked out. And then once they've got that, they'll demo it out, usually to a click track, and send it to me, and then I put my bass lines on it, send it back, and we get a little bit of back and forth going like that. For me, I like it the most just because my ears aren't getting destroyed at rehearsal. Having my recording set up, I get into the nitty gritty and really work on crafting parts versus waiting for the drum part to get figured out. So a little bit of back and forth with the bass lines. If Rob's got ideas or anybody like that has ideas, I'm like, send them forth. Of course, if anybody has bass ideas, I get the credit for it. Everybody's going to think it was my bass idea.
Right.
Bring them on, give me your best idea. But it just goes back and forth a little bit. And then before recording, hopefully we'll do a couple jams, together as a band. But gosh, I'm trying to remember in the past if we even have jammed. But I don't really like to. I think some of us don't really like to jam all the way up in the process, because in the past, you learn songs and then things change, and then your muscle memory stuck on an old demo version. We're on the new demo version.
Right.
So as best as possible, I like to try to get the music as close to final as possible. And same when possible, I even like to get the vocals. So then I kind of know, all right, chill my bass lines out because the vocals are there. I don't want to get busy if there's vocals, and if there's no vocals, maybe play harder, or, throw that extra lick in there because there's no vocals there. So as complete of a song as I could hear, I feel like the better I could do as supportive, because I don't think they really need a whole lot of help in the creative department. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
They really need support.
Right. And so getting back to touring, how do you maintain out on the road? Like I know you talked about, getting to a martial arts class or going and doing some sparring or something. But obviously it can be kind of tedious. You mentioned, sleep, eating, all that kind of stuff that we take for granted and get plenty of, or do the correct way when we're home. What's your own individual process like out on the road for maintaining? Do you have a formula for surviving out there?
Yeah, I do have. I have a routine. I mean, I have a routine at home, and I have a routine when I'm on the road. And then when I'm on holiday, there's just no routine. But when I'm on the road, I bring a yoga mat, and I try to get up early. If I'm one of the first ones in the venue, I could kind of get an hour of exercise or stretching or whatever out of the way before too many people are running around and it gets busy. It could be inconvenient to the crew and everybody else if you're flopped down on the floor trying to do push-ups and it's right in the middle of a busy way. So if I get in early, get it done early, then I get it out of the way, then, the show could go on without it being a distraction. So that's one of the first things I try to do. And then after that, I do like to go for walks in every city and just check it out if possible. Sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere. And I've definitely taken to on the road jump roping. If I do like 15 minutes of jump roping, typically before we play, it makes being on the stage not that challenging cardiovascular wise, but jump rope is also rhythmic. So oddly enough, it kind of puts me in a bit of a groove with the band. And then I kind of just got to, pick up the rhythm or slow down the rhythm to that I've been getting with the jump rope. So I find it's been good for, mind, body, spirit for getting ready for stage. And, I do like to enjoy myself. It's not all about fitness. I definitely smoke weed and drink beers before and during stage. So it all comes together. If I take care of my physical, I could enjoy getting loose so that when I'm on stage, I'm not thinking really about too much, but just doing what is natural.
Makes sense. So talk to me a little bit about, and we'll get back to more Death Angel stuff, man, but Shake and Bake Records.
Oh, right on. Yeah. So Shake and Bake has been for the 15 years I've been playing with all these guys and all these different bands who are phenomenal musicians. And I'm not going to point anybody out, but they all love other music, even though we play metal. We all write music. We all, would love to be able to express ourselves in other ways, but we know we got to do our duty, and the duty is it's a thin line to tread when we play metal. We know that we can't always do everything we want. So Shake and Bake's really just been an opportunity for me and my friends to collaborate and just do music for the sake of doing music. And it could be because you did something personal, because you did something goofy, but it's really just an opportunity to get back to why we play music, which isn't necessarily for a livelihood, but because we love playing music. So I've been trying to collaborate with as many people as I can to make it possible. And it's very open-ended. A lot of times I've created a little bit of an in-house studio band that's kind of like the Muscle Shoals band would have in Tennessee, where it's a little franchise of guys. So we all help each other complete each other's songs in different capacities. Sometimes we need players on our songs. Sometimes we need engineers to do our stuff. Sometimes we need like mixing to get done. Sometimes we need promotion. So, within all of that, we were trying to help each other out to really base it on singles. And with singles, we could put more into every song so that we're not trying to meet a deadline with our product, but really react to our environment with our newest music or our newest thing to say. Okay. So it's really kind of getting back to the roots of why we play music and right back to why slaves would sing the blues. You get done with work, you want to relate. This is the best way to get together and hang out and do stuff. You know what I mean?
And so will this be an active record label, whereas you will seek out artists and sign them? Are we talking about like a traditional record label?
Well, a lot of it's really digital right now. Physical product just isn't shipping. It becomes expensive. So people these days, they like Spotify, they like YouTube, they like Deezer, and all these different ways. And so, we're just going to embrace it and do what is working for pop artists and hip hop artists and other people, which is release singles, do collaborations, and try to keep a steady flow of stuff. And so a lot of the artists so far are just collaborators that are already on the songs. Bud Burke, I used to play with, and Scarecrow, and he's like a ripping guitar player. So a lot of times I end up just defaulting on him because he's such a good guitar player. I'm like, dude, can you put some guitars on my song? And he sends something back. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, well, let me get some of your songs. Let me put some of your songs. And another artist, Waymaker, is a friend from back in the day. He was working on his own passion project. I think really just for the same reason I'm doing it. You get done with work, you kind of get tired of getting hammered and passing out on the couch. You want to do something productive after the work. Yep. So he's been working on music, and he had these songs really just as a productive hobby after work. I'm like, dude, let me put them out. They're killer songs. And nothing could be more pure than making music in a cathartic manner, you know. So I was like, this is exactly the type of stuff I want to put out. So I think it'll continue like that as more of the artists start to understand that this isn't a traditional label where you go and you tour and you got a budget and you spend a month in the studio and then you got a bunch of product you're trying to pitch. This is really more just like a passion project that's got some legs,
So do you like where the industry is right now? Like, you brought up physical product. Are you a physical product guy, or do you like where we are with streaming?
I was okay. I'm going to start this off with a quote. I read the Rick Rubin book, The Art of Making Music or whatever. And there's a quote in there. He said, to lose your patience is to not accept reality. I think losing your patience is like being the same as kind of being angry. So sure. I get angry at the state of the world right now and the record industry. It's more challenging. There's less money. It's more competitive. I imagine probably in the 70s, people in the 80s who were there in the 70s were probably complaining about how life was in the 80s. People in the 80s were probably complaining about how it was.
Yeah.
Every generation is going to say it was better the previous generation.
It's cyclical, definitely. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of, at least some grain of truth to that. But at the same time, there is opportunity. Like, I don't have to get in debt to make pretty good recordings. I don't have to take a loan out or, court a label to put songs out and get them everywhere. I don't have to have a huge marketing budget to be able to market myself and make promotional materials. If you're motivated and you're incentivized, a lot of the stuff you could do for yourself and get it more the way you like, because you don't have to tell someone how to do it.
Right.
If you wanted the free ride, if you wanted to make a lot of money and be like Eric Clapton in the 70s, where you didn't know how much you were making, you just had a checkbook and you signed for everything. I think those days are more and more gone. But I'm not sure like those days were really even that responsible anyway. You listen to a lot of those days. At some point, Black Sabbath had to get a lawyer. They lost their asses.
Right.
Clapton had to get, everybody at some point has a point of reckoning. I say like the price of vanity is something you don't have to pay till you get older. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of like front loading, paying the dues. And as you learn, it's autocatalytic. You learn more. As you learn more, it gets easier. As it gets easier, you can take more on.
Makes sense. Yeah, it does. And I think artists probably, you make a good point. Probably creatively, they probably feel a little more free nowadays.
Really, as far as visuals and stuff like that, the way you could manipulate things these days, I'm not advocating for AI doing everything, but you could use AI to take elements off. Like, you could have a Botticelli painting and use AI to pull a piece of Botticelli's painting off, manipulate that, which isn't that different from the Use Your Illusions album cover. It's a piece of a classical painting. They zeroed in on one thing, put some color filters on it, and then you have Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
Right.
So with AI, you're common day lay people like myself all of a sudden could get involved in the art process, and it doesn't become this back and forth process of, I don't know if you've dealt with artists. I'm sure it's like dealing with musicians, but your deadline was Friday and you'll get it 3 months later.
Right.
And I understand it's hard to rush the process, but sometimes when you could do it yourself, it's nice not have to, start to lose patience with someone else and just know that's a matter of, okay, I just got to wake up earlier and spend more time doing this.
Right.
Go later, or, skip that movie with my friends and just get on this.
So for all the touring that you've done, festivals, going all over the world, have you gotten a chance to rub elbows or meet anybody who'd be like somebody that you would look up to, a jaw-dropping moment where you were kind of like, wow, I can't believe I just fucking met that person?
Well, certainly, like we got Death Angel back in, I want to say 2010 or 11, around there. We got asked to do Metallica's 30th anniversary shows at the Fillmore. It was 4 nights, and they asked us to do the 4th night. And being that Metallica and Pink Floyd were the 2 bands that really nailed home that I wanted to play music, I mean, I couldn't really get any closer to like knocking out the musical goals I had set for myself as a kid than that, you know?
Right.
I mean, the next thing would be like, they're like, oh, why not? Screw Robert Trujillo. We want you, Damien. Like that would be, that would just be like the Disney dream come true, right?
Yeah.
And so, keeping, expectations within margin, that, of course, that's super cool. Knowing that Kurt Hammett and Rob know me on a first name basis is bigger than anything I'd know. I try not to fan out on those dudes. I'm sure they're used to a lot of people who are trying super cool to be cool and hang out with them more. So I let those guys be. It's cool that they know me on a first name basis, and that, both those guys, when I met them the first time, before I even shook their hand, they're like, "Hey, Damien, it's nice to meet you." Which that's a cool precedent that when I'm meeting people, maybe I should get to know their name.
Right.
Who are you again? You know what I mean? That's the type of classy stuff that at least I remember, you know?
Yeah. When the guys at Metallica know your name, that's a pretty big deal. That is a pretty big deal.
I don't think James and Lars do, but that's all right. It's not a contest.
Right. And so talk to me a little bit about, the dynamic in terms of like, I have artists on here all the time who talk about, and they make that correlation between, a band being, a marriage or a family, you know what I mean? You're juggling different personalities or whatever. Talk to me a bit about, the band relations among the guys in Death Angel.
Right. This is like one of the biggest things about touring. And I spoke about it earlier. Personality management, right? Yeah. How to manage different personalities, and everybody's personality has a little bit of a Dr. Jekyll, a little bit of Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
You wake up and you got to use the bathroom, you're cranky, maybe the demon comes out when you drink, but everybody's got days where they're not looking very good and they want to be left alone.
Right.
So we're all trying to recognize when you're having one of those days, and then recognize when other people are having one of those days. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So as far as within the band, if we've been doing this for 15 years, obviously we know each other's limits, right? And we know which buttons not to push with each other, because I think if we didn't know each other's limits and we were pushing each other's buttons, the band in this incarnation would have imploded by now. So Will and I have known each other for 20 years, and in that 20 years, we've been close party buddies, and we've been like distant cousins, everything in between, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing is that now I think we're both at a similar stage in life, that we're a little bit more focused on what we want to do with ourselves and our careers, and I think we're taking more pride in the responsibilities of being a musician versus the well, I don't know, what do you want to call it, the excesses that could come with it, or the exclusivities that could come in. I think we're kind of, him and probably the rest of the guys too are reaching this point too, but we're kind of more into our craft these days.
Yeah.
Ted is a very business oriented guy. He's probably the most responsible guy too, and he's probably the most down to earth in that he'll talk to anybody, kicks it with the crew, kicks it with the fan. He's a very down to earth guy. Although he might seem like a tough nut to crack at first, once you get him, he's a very respectful fellow. Takes care of a lot of the business stuff, a lot of the stuff that most people just don't want to do. And then Mark and Rob, I mean, those guys they're interested. They're almost interesting Gemini characters, because they've been through it with everything, and they have similar personalities while being so incredibly different. You know what I mean? But there's certain habits that you could tell, being bros and cousins and in a band forever. It's like when you have a marriage partner, like you start to take on some of your spouse's characteristics in certain ways. Even though you might be completely different, one person votes for Trump and another one votes for, Obama, there's still certain things you take on, and with those fellas, you see it as well. Yeah. Everybody gets along. We all know how to, I think we all try to, at least from my perspective, we all try to support each other to make each other look good. You know what I mean? We want to push each other's best strengths to the forefront and protect each other's, weaknesses, so that we're always coming at with our strongest and our best.
And so your first album, along with Will, was Relentless Retribution. So what was your, talk to me a little bit about how you actually get into Death Angel.
Coming into Death Angel was, I think, largely responsible because of Ted, I think. Because Ted had played with Will and I in Scarecrow when Scarecrow Matt Harvey from Exhumed had left Scarecrow. He decided for a quick moment he didn't want to do music, which is incredible if you know anything about his profile now. He's got a zillion bands, but
He's great. Yeah.
For a second he took a break there. So we didn't know what to do with Scarecrow, and then Ted came along, and then Marcus, who's now in Trencher, he wasn't Hatchet, was doing vocals. So, when it came time to replace Andy, who got replaced before Den, Ted's like, well, I'm already playing with Will, check this out. And then when it came time, Sammy was an interim bass player for about 6 months. Killer dude. I was happy to see him with Death Angel because he's been bros with all of them forever. It made sense. But touring it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of commitment. He just couldn't do it. So at some point he kind of resigned. And so kind of last minute, I got shoot in like 2 or 3 months before the recording the album. But actually, surprisingly, that's not the first time I got shoot in a couple months before recording. So I kind of knew what to expect, and then just got to do a lot of rehearsal and a lot of practicing on my own. What I didn't expect is what was going to happen recording with Jason Sukoff. With anybody who knows Sukoff, he's a character. Yeah. So when you record with Sukoff, it's a character. So that was definitely like mind blown working with him.
Yeah.
Which I think though also foreshadows a lot of my life now. Recording with him and his style at the time, I guess, was a little bit ahead of its time. But yes, now this Pro Tool style, everybody does it. And at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff that I did with Jason Sukoff in 2010, I am now starting to employ in my own digital workstation at home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that first album, you come in and you play on it. Are you offered the position, or do you just kind of show up, play on the album, and you've just kind of been there ever since type of deal?
I was totally like the girlfriend who just, sweatshirt was there one day, and then pretty soon my pants are there, and all of a sudden I'm kind of there on weekends, and now we live together. Yep.
Yeah. It was one of those kind of situations where you just kind of came and just never left.
Right. Well, I think to be fair to the guys, I don't think they didn't ever cut the ribbon with me because I'm a little younger. Now it doesn't matter. We're all old. But at the time I was a little younger than them. And I really didn't grow up in their scene. And Death Angel, Mark Robb and a lot of the scene, it's a little bit insular might be a strong word, but there's a circle to it. And I definitely didn't come from the circle.
Right.
So I think that they really never cut the ribbon with me because they wanted to make sure that all of a sudden, they want to make sure that what they saw is what they got, and there wasn't going to be something from the back end that came out.
Right.
And then by the time they realized that I was solid, it kind of seemed silly to be like, "Hey, welcome to the band,"
Right. It does seem like though, and someone made this point a couple months ago when I had him on the podcast. You make a good point about like all you guys being old men now. You know what I mean? But it does seem like metal is still being carried by the elder statesmen of the scene. So somebody even put it to me that metal is still kind of an old man's game. A lot of the older bands that we think of, and I saw you guys a couple years back on the Bay Area Strikes Back tour, and I'm thinking Testament, Death Angel, Exodus. These guys are still the guys carrying the torch for thrash metal.
Yeah, no, we need to get sponsored by Geritol,
I know, or Ben Gay or something. I don't.
Well, I think it's just that because the brand. I hate to use something that we love as a brand because then you think of it as a product, and I just don't like that. But nonetheless, thrash metal and the traditional metal is kind of a brand. The Merciful Fates and all those, and there's when people try to come and recreate it, you can't recreate Led Zeppelin. The doom that try to recreate like Black Sabbath, they're all good, but it's not Black Sabbath. So, the thrash metal and that original metal scene that came out of the late 70s and particularly thrived in the early 80s, it can move on and confuse into new things. And you do have stuff like Lorna Shore. And if you go further, you do have things like Polyphia, which aren't through and through metal. But, same thing. You can't have big band, big New Orleans jazz today because it's not the 1950s.
Right.
So that these statesmen, that Testaments and the Metallicas and the Sepulturas are still carrying it is because we're still alive,
Yeah.
When they die, I don't think the music's necessarily die. It'll just have kind of transmutated into the next thing,
right?
Which might represent what it was, but Weather Report didn't really represent, New Orleans jazz, just like Led Zeppelin didn't really represent the blues,
right?
But nonetheless, that's what it is, and so
right.
Kind of like we were talking earlier, it's cyclical, and so the influence will continue to last, just like we're continuing to be influenced by Beethoven and Mozart, but it's not going to sound like Beethoven and Mozart,
right?
the new stuff isn't going to sound like Testament, Exodus, and Death Angel, you know?
When you're listening to music, you're putting around your house, you're doing anything, you're in your car. What are your listening trends like? Are you somebody that kind of falls back on the stuff that you loved growing up, or are you able to find new music, new stuff that excites you or feels new and fresh to you?
I go totally both ways. I have my nostalgic playlist, and I've really gotten into playlists. It's awesome that you could just put your own playlist, put it on shuffle, and you don't have to worry about any stuff you don't have to hear. You don't have to worry about hearing Stairway to Heaven again on your playlist. You could hear another one.
Right.
So I'm doing that, and I have them for moods, genres, and decades. But I hang out with some younger fellows at Shake and Bake. My engineer is a younger fellow. He's 33, so he keeps me fresh and up to date on new stuff. And a lot of the stuff he introduces me to, I do like. He introduced me to Pliny, who's an Australian artist who's awesome, and he keeps me into. He introduced me to Igor, which is new and awesome. I think Igor's a big buzz right now, but they totally would have flown over my radar if he hadn't shown me. So hanging out with younger fellows and just relating gets me back to what got me into music in the first place, which is relating. Sometimes you relate to the lyrics of the artist, but sometimes you relate to hanging out with your buddy and pumping your fist or whatever, or whatever it may be. There's songs from ex-girlfriends, that got me into stuff. So hanging out with people who have different listening tastes is going to keep my listening taste fresh, because I like to relate. I'm not a gatekeeper. So if they like something and they're digging it, I'm going to try to get into it, Hopefully it works. Not always it does. That being said, man, I love when I'm cruising down the road. Yeah, I'm listening to nothing but classics,
Yeah.
Listen to all my favorite stuff, And when Black Sabbath comes on, or a classic Iron Maiden song comes on, I'm not changing the channel. That's the stuff I love. So I try to be adaptable. If I fail to adapt, then I fail to evolve. So
Are you like, obviously I know that Death Angel is, your main gig, but are you somebody that when you're involved in a band, it has your sole attention, or are you involved in other projects? Like I've had guys on here, I've had Will on the podcast, but I've had other guys a lot like him who are 4, 5, 6 different bands. I admire those kind of guys, because I think, where the fuck do they find the time? Jesus Christ, I'm complaining about a day job and doing a few podcast interviews a week. These people amaze me. 4 or 5 bands. They got their toe in this, a toe in that. Where do you stand on that? Multiple projects or just one?
Well, I've definitely lost the steam to keep up multiple projects. Before I joined Death Angel, I was one of those dudes who had gigs every weekend, was filling in all the time. Once I joined Death Angel, it's hard to go. Of course, I am privileged. I'm not trying to sound overly pampered or spoiled, but it's hard to go back to lugging all your own gear and waiting around and getting your drink tickets and all these things.
Yeah.
I'll just save it up for the good stuff,
Yeah.
That being said, if friends ask me to fill in for gigs, I'm going to fill in for gigs for them. My buddy's in Potential Threat. Every now and then their bass player is out of town. If I'm able to make the gig, I want to fill in for them. And same thing as if someone asked me to record on this day and age, I like to record.
Yeah.
Really, I love the creative process of recording. I like to do the creative process of writing. I like learning about mixing and engineering and all that stuff. I feel like I could. So I've kind of refocused my time onto that, and especially being that Death Angel does get pretty cool tours. So I get so much. And I'm going to say we. But I specifically, we get so much attention playing in Death Angel, being on stage, doing meet and greets, doing signing sessions, that it's more than a healthy amount of attention than I need. So I don't need more attention, and I don't need to. And so for me, like playing a gig, it's not going to pay. It's not going to get traction for my original stuff. I will get attention. I'll get some free drinks. I'll have a good time. But I would just rather focus on being in the studio with kind of that time. I'd rather be in the studio doing those type of things.
Sure. Makes sense. And so going back to Shake and Bake Records for a second, I love all the stuff that you said about it and working and that freedom and working with your friends. But do you have a definitive vision or a goal for what you'd like to see Shake and Bake Records become? Is it more than what you explained?
Well, I'd love to be able to see it so that it's almost like I want it to be the new Rolling Stone.
Okay.
I want it to be a full enterprise where it's the new Rolling Stone probably doesn't encapsulate enough, but where artists can release stuff. You could have exclusive interviews. You could have behind the scenes. You could have breakdowns. You could have playthroughs. You could have new mixes and remixes. I want it to be like a full cultural hub where anybody from any stretch of music could come and not have to put up the front of whatever their genre is. Like I know there's some fellas, for example, there's Lady Gaga has a backing band, incredible musicians. These guys are rockers. They deserve to get tons of attention, but they can't say they're from Lady Gaga. You know, their own music, they have to say we're our own original music, no association. You know, and so this is kind of like that for people who come from these kind of NDA situations or non-NDA, non-disclosure agreements. They could come here and do their thing. And I want it to be a hub where people could every day or every week, you know, you're looking forward to that Rolling Stone, or you're looking forward to that new subscription coming out. And I want it to be like that. And you could just, everybody could get in on it and basically have it be a mutual cultural center. Fans can become, you know, artists or collaborate if they have something to offer. So really just trying to make it a scene for creativity and be a cooperative, you know. We know I love to have more artists, get a PR market, try to get the marketing market, and really build the publishing so we could get it in games, get it in movies, and get it in commercials. Because if we don't sacrifice, if we're not selling out and making the music, well, then we could sell out and marketing the music.
Sure.
If we didn't have some ponytail guys saying we need a hit and we just wrote our music the way we want, who cares if it's in a Mountain Dew commercial? Because we compromise the music.
Right.
You know? So the idea is to try to get that going and try to get more endorsements and sponsorships. Most of these artists so far are like, man, screw the money. If I could just get endorsed by Gibson and Marshall, or if I could just get, you know, Schecter and Mesa Boogie, or if I could just get Logic Pro and things like that. So really just try and make it a hub so we could continue to be creative and create our own environment of creativity and positivity, make music the way we want, not have to sell out, you know?
Now, did you have any, in light of the fact that there's been all these seismic shifts and changes in the music industry, did you have any trepidation, you know, at all when you, you know, when you decide to do this? You know, obviously we've seen a lot of labels, you know what I mean, you know, have fallen to the wayside. The music industry has gone through some huge shifts and changes. You know, did you give this a lot of forethought, and was there any hesitation on doing this?
There was both forethought and hesitation. I tried to read, I read books, I've been read a couple books about it. Some more on the how to start a label, some that are more on the specifics of how to file your stuff with the government and things like that. So a lot of musicians are scared of this stuff like PROs, public rights organizations. Everybody I know who's a musician who's been doing this for years, like, oh yeah, like I meant to understand that at some point, and well, let me find out where that number is at. So I kind of looked at it like one of these things, try to find what my weakness is and focus on that. Same with like boxing, you know, your left is weak, you got to focus more on your left. Sure. And so it's the same way, like these bureaucratic technical things have always scared the shit out of me. So I was like, well, I guess these are the things I really need to tackle and figure out, you know, like these are things I need to focus on when it comes to the speed bag. So, you know, trying to understand how to get filed with the Secretary of State, how to do PROs, how to do song trust, sound exchange, mechanical licensing, trying to understand, and it's an ongoing process, but understanding that stuff, hey, you know, I'm like, God, am I going back to school? Like, I thought I made it. I thought I don't have to go to school like that. But you know, you never made it. At least if you have a good mindset, you always should be improving. So yeah, it was like, basically I took a year before I launched to try to get all my ducks in a row. And then even when it came down to the last 3 months, I felt like I was scrambling. And like, of course, this isn't Apple, but I felt like, you know, they were talking about Steve Jobs launching the first phone. He said he had 6 different phones, each with one app because it wasn't ready yet. You know,
right.
Reach another one and be like, look at this app, and then and I was relating that to the end, and then so it was a lot of work. I did a lot of preparation. I tried to get everything lined up so when I'm launching, I'm not trying to play catch up. And then there's hesitation. Playing in the heavy metal scene, there are gatekeepers, there's opinions, and I'm not impervious. You know, we all have feelings as much as like we try to be like, oh, fuck it, man, fuck this shit, fuck it all with fucking no regrets. Man, we all have feelings. A lot of us maybe are even more sensitive. That's why we're in the arts, because we do have feelings, and we put up walls and we put up shields that protect us most of the time. But of course, I know people are going to come out and be like, this isn't fucking Slayer. Like, this dude's singing some wussy-pussy music here. Well, I'm not singing, but you know, I understand that it's, you know, and even I joke about with the guys like, this shit is wussy. You know, we joke about, but we could say it's wussy because we know it was genuine. We're not trying to be wussy. We're not trying to be sensitive. This shit just came out naturally. So we're not trying to be self-conscious about it, but of course we still aren't impervious to criticism and what people are going to say about it. So yeah, there's times where I'm like, man, my feelings are going to get hurt, but My feelings getting hurt has never stopped me from stepping up to the plate.
Right.
Everybody risks striking out when they step up, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So
Right.
a lot of it was talking myself through and being like, you know what, fuck it. When people talk shit, I'd be like, what did you put out? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
What have you done? So the hesitation was mostly just in building up the self-confidence and maintaining it that, hey man, I need to do this if I'm going to get my own name. I need to do this if me and my friends are going to be able to release our songs, because labels these days, unless you're 21 and you really are star quality, yeah, they're glorified banks.
Right, right. And you make a good point too. Art is so subjective too, you know what I mean, that you can't just like not put it out for fear of pushback or people's opinion, you know. Then nothing would ever come out. We'd never have art.
Right. And I got good friends, some of my best friends are very manly men,
Yeah.
tough dudes, but some, you meet Marines and you meet MMA guys, and they actually do have a sensitive side,
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of where the respect for their opponent and other people comes from, right? So I remember talking to a buddy of mine that says like, yeah, a lot of people are going to be like, wow, like this isn't what I expected. He's like, yeah, but what do you think Metallica thought when they wrote Fade to Black? Or what do you think, Led Zeppelin thought when they wrote Stairway to Heaven? Like, or what do you think, Black Sabbath was thinking when they wrote Solitude? Like, you can't do stuff to stay in your lane.
Right.
And so thinking about that, I was like, it's true, like all my favorite artists took risk, and maybe to them it wasn't a risk. Maybe they're just doing what was natural, but I was like, taking a risk in this instance is natural for me.
Right. And that is a double-edged sword though, because like, if an artist stays consistent, then they get labeled boring. And then when they take risks, everyone wants them to, why did you deviate from the original sound? So, I mean, you really are in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Right. So, I think it's fine. Like, I know my girl loves all 14 AC/DC albums, and I think if AC/DC all of a sudden went new wave, I would be bummed out. Right?
Yeah.
I think if they went disco new wave or something like that. So, I think it's sizing up the type of person you are and the type of entity you are. I know Iron Maiden likes to think that they've evolved. In my mind, they really haven't evolved, but I know they have. To me, they're kind of done the same thing. And once again, that's their entity. I'm a type of person who, I've gone to different schools. I live in a different country. I've always hung out with like different demographics. So part of just my own history has been someone who's been adaptable.
Yeah.
And so, when I was working in inner city, I'm talking basketball. We're listening to rap, and we're relating on that type of culture. So my music and artists are going to reflect their environment. So my music is always going to reflect the environments I've come from. And they haven't stayed. My environment hasn't been a little small circle. It's really, I've kind of been an orphan of the world, and that I've been a bunch of different places and adopted by a bunch of different groups and felt welcome there, but while never really being, indigenous to that place. So my music is going to continue to be a reflection of that, and that some of it's going to be heavy, some of it's going to be soft, some of it's going to be unexpected, but I've been adaptive, and that's my history. So the music is going to be a reflection of that. Probably if I grew up with my circle and all I knew was heavy metal, my music would be only that.
Yeah. Where do you stand on like, because the industry has changed so much and we do have streaming here, it seems like singles, EPs, shorter bodies of work have become a lot more prevalent now. Attention spans have dwindled. I think coupled with the fact that maybe artists don't want to be forgotten about and become yesterday's news because there's such an influx of music on the streaming sites. Do you have an opinion one way or another? What works better? What makes more sense when you're releasing music, singles, LPs, EPs? I think in the metal world, LPs still makes sense because I think metal fans still want 10, 12 songs. But I mean, what's your opinion on it?
Well, I think when I was in college, I did a course called Rock Since the Mid-'60s. So we were studying music since pretty much a little bit before the Beatles forward. And when you look at the Beatles and you look at the Stones and you look at the Who, you look at the Faces, they weren't releasing albums. They were releasing singles with B-sides.
Yep.
And they would release 3 or 4 singles, put them together and put one new song, and that was really the album. And so I'm kind of using that a little bit as the model for Shake and Bake, in that we could release a bunch of singles, and at some point it would be nice to test the waters for some cool physical product. Like Cock Records, Mike Patton's label, does a great job of doing awesome packaging.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't like the music, you don't want to sell the album because the packaging is incredible.
Right. Right.
I want to kind of get to the point with Shake and Bake where we could do like a limited release. In the video game world, there's limited run. Now, I know they're kind of grifters in the way that they extract money from their fans, but I do like the idea of having a limited run physical product. In particular, I would love to do vinyl. But if CDs and cassettes were there, that'd be cool too. But once there is a little bit more of a demand, I think it would be awesome to compile these singles into EPs or physical LPs that maybe only have a press run of 600 or 1,200 copies, like Night of the Vinyl Dead. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Night of the Vinyl Dead?
No, I'm not.
Fantastic. They're from Italy. Same thing. They only do vinyl of albums that have never been on vinyl before.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, they're incredible. I recommend you check them out. And it's limited. Each one is limited. I don't think they ever do more than 2,000. You got the 1 of 2,000, 2 of 2,000, all the way up. You know what I mean? And so I'd love to get into something like that so that people don't want to sell their copies. Like, I don't want things to end up in the used bin. I want it to be, even if you don't need to listen to it, you want to put it in a frame on the wall and have it be part of your memorabilia.
Right. It's cherished. Yeah.
So, I think there is an ability to embrace both sides. I think we could release digital singles and micro EPs on the internet to satiate our listening. And then I think we could kind of test the waters and see what the demand is and do a press of 200, 400, 600, 1,200 of something that really, you're getting your value on it, so that if you're getting your vinyl and you open it up, it pops out at you, or it's really something that is going to be a fun thing to collect and keep it at a good price point, so that we're not selling Kerry King guitars at $6,000. We're selling a cool piece of vinyl at a respectable $30, $35,
Yeah. Now, I want to ask, and I won't know what the hell you're talking about after I ask this question, so I'll sit back and listen. But there's a certain demographic of people out there that would probably love to know the gearheads, what your setup is like, and how you get that sound that you get on Death Angel albums.
Well, the Death Angel albums, everybody's gonna, from Stevie Ray Vaughan forward and back, is gonna say you get your sound from your fingers.
Yes, ultimately.
It's the way you play down here. You can play in front of the beat. Some people play a lot of thrashes in front of the beat. It almost feels like you're running downhill, and if you're gonna pull over. Some people play right on the beat, and that's almost like when you program your drum machine or you program your MIDI, and it's just almost no feel. And there's a little bit behind the beat, which is what you kind of get into in a lot of good, rock and roll, R&B, and soul. And so where you play on the beat is going to be part of it. And then also the way you vibrato your notes, whether you really shake them, whether you're straight, so much of your sound is going to come through your fingers. When Rob picks up an acoustic guitar unplugged, he sounds like Rob. When Jeff Beck picks up a lap steel, he sounds like Jeff Beck. When Bud Burke plays a fretless guitar, he sounds like Bud Burke. So your sound comes from who you are. That being said, a lot of stuff is done these days with plugins. So there's an Ampeg plugin, there's the bass knob. They all can achieve pretty much the same effect. What I've been using myself, just because it's so easy, is I have a bass parallax, which, like you said, I'll probably lose you here. I'll probably lose a lot of people here. But a bass parallax basically takes your mid-range. You have a sounds frequency of low end to high end.
Okay.
And everything in between. And your kick drums are gonna be low. Do, do. Your squeals are gonna be high. Whee!
Okay.
Have everything in between. You may, And so what the parallax does, it's gonna take the mid-range of the bass, which the best way to describe the mid-range of bass is think the bass tone on Practice What You Preach.
Okay.
That bass tone is very mid-range bass tone. So it's gonna take that, specifically that range, and add a little bit of gain overdrive to it, a little bit of crunch to it, while still leaving the other places just normal. So I've been using that just because in order to do that with side chains and buses would be like 1,000 steps to get, well, not 1,000, it'd be like probably 12 steps to do it. Here you got to plug in one step, it's done.
Yep.
So I use the bass parallax for that. I'm trying to remember who makes I think it's Neural DSPs who makes that.
Okay.
So for software, I like to do a lot of that. And then it comes down to doing things, high pass, low pass filter, cutting off the frequencies that just aren't going to be helpful, the dog whistle notes and the low rumbles that are going to hit the brown note. You want to cut those off. And then as far as live, it's Ampeg, all Ampeg. Important things are Ampeg bass. If I'm using passive pickups, I have a little formula. If I'm using passive pickups, which means they don't use a battery, then I want a tube head. tube head has more power, helps power the passivity. But if I have active pickups like EMGs, which I do have in all my basses now, besides the Geezer Butler ones, then I want a solid state. Somehow the tubes and the active pickups is like too much, and then I'm trying to cut out frequency. So that's a general rule of thumb. But I like to go really simple. I have a direct box and a mic. So mic on the amp, direct box, goes straight into our sound guy, Tilo. Tilo therefore can manipulate it himself, but also has some speaker. So it's kind of the same thing the Parallax does. The speaker is going to be the gain, and the direct is going to be the warmth, clean signal.
Okay.
And I keep it pretty simple. This is thrash, so I don't even have distortion. I just use the natural gain. I don't even have no effects, because this isn't an ego project. It's bass. It's the meat and potatoes. I need to serve up the gravy and not a whole lot of extra dazzle.
Yep.
So, and I don't want to get distracted, I do love wah pedals and I love effects, and there's a time and place for it. But when you're playing through and through thrash metal like Death Angel, I think it's more important to control your frequencies and deliver the beef,
And me not being a musician myself, is there a glaring difference between using a pick and playing with your fingers? If I'm not mistaken, you are a finger player, correct?
Well, I think that once again, it's going to come down to your feel. Billy Gould, one of my favorite bass players from Faith No More, plays with both a pick and his fingers.
I love him.
Yeah.
I've had him on the podcast. I love Faith No More. Huge Faith No More fan.
Such a popular bass player too. Fantastic bass player. Geezer Butler, you look at him on California Jam, and he's playing with a pick. The Outlaw of Iron Man, he's playing with a pick. Of course, Chris Squire, the tone master, plays with the pick.
Yep.
So I think it's going to come down to having Mike Inez plays with the pick. So there's a lot of pick players who play sloppy, who I think they should play with a pick, and there's a lot of pick players who probably there's times that they can play with their fingers. I played with my fingers because that's how I learned to play. But I think there's a consistency you get with the pick, and that's why I've tried to learn to play with just the tip of the fingernail when I really need to get a tremolo. I think they call it glissando.
Yeah.
I could do just that. But watching James Hetfield, I also see how much he down picks. So I've tried to emulate that by learning how to use the thumb in a similar way, because when he picks, he kind of pulls the strings down before they pop back off.
Yeah.
But then he pulls them out. That's where he gets that. I call it it's a mashing tone. He's zhun, zhun, zhun's really mashing. A lot of people can't get that because of the way they lay in. So I try to employ as many techniques as possible to get the sounds I need to. Sometimes it's fingers, back and forth, up and down, Alex Webster style. Some it's just two fingers, Jaco Pastoria style. Really started getting into the thumb index like Geddy Lee started doing in the latter era. Yeah. And then you get into thumb index, middle, ring finger like Victor Wooten does when he's finger picking. So it all kind of depends. When you're in this position, you could palm mute. So all of a sudden, if you needed like the Memphis flat picking sound or that upright bass, you could do it in the thumb position. So, within the set list, I'm going to probably jump around based on what I'm trying to get. And I'm trying to get these sounds versus relying on pedals to, change the sound. I could do it all with my fingers if I change my technique, play closer to the bridge, play closer to the neck. So
right.
It's all in your fingers. As far as if I was good with a pick, I'd probably use one, but I could do it with my fingernail and pretty much get the same effect. So a good player is a good player. You know what I mean?
You've thrown out a lot of incredible names. If I had to hold your feet to the flame and have you give me, subjectively speaking, of course, your Mount Rushmore of bass players, who would make the list? The four greatest to you.
Well, Geddy Lee's going to be up there just because that's a no-brainer. And Victor Wooten's going to be up there just for how much he has done for the instrument.
Yep.
Gosh, it's fair. It's hard to like eliminate it because there's guys who I know are super important. Like I would never. James Jamerson is the GOAT. He is the GOAT, right? But is he on my Mount Rushmore? No, because I really didn't have appreciation for him until I was 20, 25. I was already into Steve Harris's. I'm going to put Cliff Burton up there just because of how much he inspired people. Yeah. Yeah. And that fourth guy, I mean, it's so tough because I am a meat and potatoes guy. I'm not really a virtuoso. I'm not a Billy Sheehan player. I'm more likely to do something Billy Gould than Billy Sheehan. So someone like Roger Glover or Billy Gould really should be the fourth guy. It's kind of hard to say, but Roger Glover was a guy I loved as a child. I thought Roger Glover tore it up. Yeah. People, you're so simple. You're so old school. But I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's old school, but he filled the sound out.
But does everything have to be reinventing the wheel, though? I mean, sometimes the job calls for simple, though.
Right.
But,
right. I agree. And like I said, thrash metal, rock and roll, the wall sound, the mutt lange, It's
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really room for the John Paul Jones. Okay, maybe John Paul Jones would be the 4. You
Yeah.
know?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, Geezer Butler. Oh, shit, did I say Geezer Butler in there? Geezer would have to definitely be in there. Okay, Cliff Burton, Geddy Lee, Geezer Butler, Victor Wooten. There it is.
Okay.
It's set.
There it is. There it is. It's cemented. We're going to start carving it into the mountain today.
Yeah, I can't believe I even waited that long to say Geezer Butler. I feel terrible.
Yeah. And so currently, well, the last new thing from Death Angel was Wrath. You guys dropped a single back in May. Are you at liberty to say when fans could expect more new music from Death Angel?
I'm not liberty to say, but I will tease coming soon.
Coming soon. Okay.
The tour coming up. I would imagine between now and then there might be something happening.
Okay. And you guys will be going out to tour and play Act 3 in its entirety.
We have been you talked to Will, I think, a week ago, you were saying, so I'm sure he went deeply into it. We're stepping up the game for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, I've already said it too. I've already kind of put my pledge out there. I wasn't around when Act 3 came out, but I know that Act 3 is the album and the reason that Death Angel still exists today.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Put them on the map, gave them some longevity, gave them some respectability, and it's a lot of people's favorite album.
Yeah.
So that being said, I told all the guys, I was like, I think we really need to take this serious because of how much of the Death Angel fans, this is the holy grail of Death Angel albums. So
yeah,
I think we all really want to do a good job. We've all been practicing. I try to put in at least an hour Monday through Friday. I take weekends off, but I try to at least an hour every day to keep it fresh, so that when we're going out there, it's muscle memory. Because there's nothing better than being on stage and being able to look people in the eyes and connect and not be like, oh, what's that? I've seen photos of myself where I'm stoned on stage and I don't know what's coming up next, and it's totally. I want us to be up there, muscle memory, like Bruce Lee says, punching all by itself.
Yeah. So, so you obviously have to go back and really, now forgive me, I said I saw you guys a couple years on the Bay Area Strikes Back tour, but I don't remember the set though. Are there already a lot of Act 3 songs incorporated in the Death Angel set? And how much learning of it did you have to do?
I'd say is it 10 songs or 8 songs on the album? We played like, at different various points at my being in the band, we've played like 8 of 10 songs, but never at the same time. For the last few years, we've just been doing the Seemingly Endless Time.
And I think Will might have mentioned maybe too. He might have mentioned it in our discussion too, man. Like maybe how many of those are in the set list too, man. But I can't remember. But
we've been spread apart. We've never done more than 2 Act 3 songs at a time in the set. I don't believe.
Yeah. And now you mentioned also kind of growing up, in the 90s, you kind of alluded to that was when you started to make grown up decisions, that kind of stuff or whatever. There's been so many scenes, throughout the course of music history. Around the 90s, you mentioned hip hop being very popular. Another scene, that was kind of had a polarizing effect on people, the grunge scene. What did you think of the grunge scene? Like when it burst onto the, it was kind of the 80s hair metal, all of a sudden kind of hit the wall and kind of died. And then we had that suddenly the Seattle scene was there.
Right. It's an interesting time. And especially where I was at, my older sister, she was always like mature beyond her years. She's older than me than 3 years. So she was always mature beyond her years. I mean, she moved out of the house at like 16. I mean, she was ready to drive at 12. She always had her finger on the pulse of stuff first. So she had NWA's album, like demo before it dropped and stuff like that. Cypress Hill's demo before it dropped. So there's a lot of pressure internally, my sister, to conform to that, So I had the pressure of, and I did like a lot of the music. I mean, especially where I was growing up, it was a little challenging sometimes. So, these guys with bad attitudes talking about like, fuck this and fuck that. I did relate. No doubt about it. I felt I related definitely more to the rap guy's message than the white preppy kids at the, at the private school.
Sure.
Nothing about it. You know what I mean? So, I got lost. What was this question again?
Grunge.
Oh, grunge. So when grunge came out, when I grew up, hair metal was it was embarrassing. It's from something super macho like rap at that time, which has its own reputation that we don't need to go into. But looking at guys that look like bitches was like the last thing I wanted to do for my street cred.
Yeah.
So when grunge came out and it had kind of like this like anti hair metal thing, it wasn't very difficult for me to relate to. You know what I mean? It was like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like if those guys think that, those guys look like pussy bitches, then these guys must be all right. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't mind grunge too much. It was like I said, it was top 20. So grunge to me really didn't include stuff like Mudhoney or the Pixies. It was staying surface level with stuff like Soundgarden and Temple of the Dog, Pearl Jam, and I know they're not grunge, but I thought Stone Temple Pilots was probably the most brilliant band to come out of that time.
Yeah.
They were so interesting in that when I listened to them, they were like the meeting point of the Rolling Stones meets Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell at the time, but the guitar, with the drumming, everything. I was like, wow, it's not as cheesy as the Stones, but not as epic as Zeppelin.
Yeah. So you and Will are the rhythm section of Death Angel, man. So talk to me a little bit about specifically, man. You know what I mean? Like, do you guys, you guys seem pretty in sync. You know what I mean? Like how does the rhythm section maintain that cohesion?
Well, Will's definitely got his own style, no doubt about it. Everybody knows that's why we call him the Beast Man, right? He's got the Beast style, and he's a pounder. I remember when I used to play with him in Hail Satan, people would be like, "Dude, he's a pounder. He's a pounder,"
Yeah.
And yeah, he is beastly back there. But I've been playing with him since I was about 21.
Yeah.
So it's just like anybody you've known, like he knows. If I tell a story, there's like a good 80% chance he knows the story I'm about to tell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we've been together forever. Same with when you have partners or friends, you kind of each other. You can finish each other's sentences. You've told each other's jokes. And musical repertoire is similar in the same way in like linguistics. So it's my job to follow him. It's not his job to adhere to me. So over the years, I've gotten used to knowing what his musical dialogue is and to anticipate it.
Does it help that you guys came into the band at the same time? Does that help the cohesion?
It helps that we played in Scarecrow and Hail Satan together as well.
Sure.
Being in the band together, it's nice that I didn't have to learn one drum style and then another one. I was kind of coming in and just, learning the Death Angel style along with him,
What did you think of the previous Death Angel bass player?
Oh, Dan was killer.
Yeah.
And, well, that was one of the things I did like about Death Angel. And truth be told, I didn't grow up with a lot of the Bay Area thrash. I grew up with Metallica, I grew up with Megadeth, and I grew up with those more. I didn't grow up with not even Anthrax. I didn't have any Anthrax albums growing up, and I know they're one of the big four. So I really grew up on the surface. So one of the things I liked when one of my buddies was showing me Death Angel, I was like, oh, you can hear the bass, and the bass is doing something. That was one of the Death Angel's things. The original bands all kind of had Sepultura had the tribal, Metallica had the songwriting and the vocals. Megadeth had the speed, Anthrax had the gang vocals, and Death Angel had the funky.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Plus, it was pretty amazing though, just how young they were. I remember when they came on the scene, man, just thinking like, Jesus, man, this kid Andy behind the drums is like, junior high age.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Crazy.
I think they still think of themselves as the youngest band in thrash.
I think they are. And I think I even talked about this with Will too. I think it makes them even younger, the fact that they kind of did take that hiatus. You know what I mean? So they don't have a lot of mileage on them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I just know that, Mark and Rob, they really do have a passion for playing live.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell.
There's people who are artists, the dude from Radiohead, you could tell he's an artist, doesn't want to make eye contact.
Right.
And there's people who are entertainers and performers. I would say Rob is an amazing performer. Watching, and Mark is a proper entertainer. You put him up there with a David Lee Roth or a Paul Stanley. He can enter or chat whoever. He'll entertain the crowd.
Yeah.
So they're in their element when they're on stage, and they save it up for them. There's like an old Viking saying that if you don't use the Red Fury in the fit of battle, then you'll have none left for battle, and that's them. They save the Red Fury for the fit of battle. Yeah. So best piece of advice anybody ever gave you? Oh shit, that's a in context of what?
Just in context of something that you've kind of tucked away, man, and have taken to heart, man, that somebody told you somewhere along the way.
Well, I think it's more of the saying by Oscar Wilde, which is don't worry about being anybody else because they're already taken. Which means you just gotta be who you are, And I think there's times we've all felt pressure to kind of fit in.
Yeah.
Like I've been adopted by groups, gang groups, sports groups, biker groups. There's been so many different groups who have been kind of adopted in, but it's never really been who I am.
Right.
And so I think the best advice is, you can't be there for others if you're not there for yourself. So you just gotta be who you are.
Yeah.
Like I know sometimes as well, being in a metal band, if I adjusted my attitude, I could really come off like a cool motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I'm sure I could come out my chest and all of a sudden, you know, I should be kicking it with Zach Wild, but that's not really who I am. I am like, you know, 50% dork, 20% nerd, you know, and I just kind of got, it just ended up in this kind of vessel, but that's my mind, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why I'd want to encourage to anybody, because I think that's the best advice to me is just be yourself. If you're doing what you love, then you could love other people. You know?
Embrace your inner dork. Embrace your inner dork.
Whoever it is, you know, let's like an abusive spouse, embrace who you are. You know, if you're a dork, if you are a little bit of macho, you could still be macho and respectful and sensitive. You know,
no doubt, no doubt. Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think people need to define themselves on one characteristic. I remember when I moved to San Francisco, I had all gay roommates, and it wasn't really a big thing to me, especially because when I found out my roommates were gay, you know, the first guy told me, he's like, yeah, but we're not defined by our sexuality. You know,
right.
That's like the thing. I'm not defined by being a dork. I'm not defined by being a bass player in Death Angel. I'm not defined by any of those things. Those are all just aspects of the personality. So I don't think anybody needs to be defined by any one aspect, and they should be allowed to, you know, embrace all the parts of their personality.
Yeah. So before I let you out of here, where's the best place to tap in with the different things that you're doing? Is there a website? Is there a way? First of all, we'll start with Shake and Bake. Is there a way to tap in with them, follow along on the journey, see what you got going on?
Shake and Bake is on everything. They're on Spotify. It'll just be Shake and Bake Records. ShakeandBakeRecords.com, Shake and Bake on YouTube, Shake and Bake. All you gotta do is type Shake and Bake Records, and all that stuff will pop up. Also on Linktree, same thing, Shake and Bake. As far as me personally, it's gonna either be my name, Damien Sisson, but most of my stuff is under heavy mellow.
Okay.
Or heavy mellow bass.
Okay.
But everything, if you find one of them, they're linked to everything else as it is these days and age. But of course, I nobody runs my socials, nobody runs my email, and nobody runs my number. So if anybody gets a hold of me and they don't get a response, it's probably because I'm lazy. But when you do get a response, it's me. You're not getting, you know, you're not getting something generic.
Yeah, no, your girlfriend was kind enough to get back to me through the Facebook page and says that, you know, I mean, she helps out with the Facebook page. And so, yeah, please thank her. She really helped facilitate this and really get it together. So,
okay, if there's some good advice that I've heard before, get a good woman.
Get a good woman. I've got one who's put up with me for 28 years. So, yeah.
Every powerful man or every successful man has had a strong partner behind him. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be a woman. I mean,
right.
Have a strong partner.
Strong partner. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with more.
Carol runs my. It's funny. The things she runs are all doing good. She more followers, more likes. All the stuff I is doing terrible.
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, Death Angel, obviously, ain't going to be hard to find them out on the internet, right? They got a website.
Speak it into Siri and they'll pop up, right?
Speaking into Siri, yeah. Well, come on, man. Me and Damien can't do it for you out there, people. Come on, just use your fingers. I say it all the time, just like they used to say with the Yellow Pages back in the day. Let your fingers do the walking, right? Get on there, type it up.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but those with eyes, may they see, and those with ears, may they listen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So listen, man, I really appreciate you doing this, man. It was really a pleasure, man, and happy to be in contact with you now. And anytime you got something going, man, you got a platform here, man. I'd love to have you back, man. This was a great conversation, really.
Well, you're up in New York, right?
I'm in upstate New York, yeah.
Are you gonna come out to the Act 3 show at all?
You guys will be, the closest date to me will be Albany, which is where I came the last time. I'll tell you a quick story. The last time, and I realized that I like doing my podcast remotely because I've tried to go and do it in person a few times, and I just don't enjoy it as much as being here in my domain. So the last time you guys played on the Bay Area Strikes Back tour, Will put me on the list. I tried to interview him backstage, and I just didn't really enjoy it, so I never aired it. It was a little loud, a little cluttered. I was appreciative that he got me in or whatever. We hung out, blew down a couple doobies out in the parking lot. That was all great and everything. Hope I'm not incriminating him in any way, but it was a real fun hang or whatever. But I just realized, like, in that backstage area, that I'm out of my element. I feel stupid with a piece of paper in front of me and questions. Even though I have that right here, I feel more secure in my nest here.
I feel stupid backstage half the time. Usually when my friends come, I'm like, let's go up to the street. Like it's a mess back here, you know?
Exactly. And I felt weird walking back there because we went back to like a back room and I'm walking by Skolnick and Gary Holt and it's kind of like, you know, it's like the fan, wants to get really giddy, but I'm trying to maintain professionalism. Will's bringing me back there and I'm trying to just, be cool. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to draw a lot of attention. We're just trying to go back there. We have a singular focus. We're trying to go back and do this interview or whatever. And, Yeah, so I like my element, but yes, I would like to come down to the show though, absolutely, man. Especially seeing you guys play Act 3.
That's what I was gonna say. If Will doesn't take care of you, let me know. I'll take care of you.
Oh, I will. Yeah, I think it's in December, I believe.
Cool. Yeah. Give me a reminder, and I will make sure your passes are all taken care of.
Oh, that'd be great, man. That'd be great. I look forward to it. And then, yeah, I would love to meet in person, man, and chop it up and hang out, man, and say hi, man. Definitely. Yeah.
People will say I'm the elusive one, but I've been out more and more lately, so
The
I'm not so.
the elusive one, yeah. And so obviously on all the websites, people can get details on all the upcoming dates and everything. I assume, right? They're all out there.
Oh, thankfully, Death Angel's been blasting the socials with all types of promotion. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't Facebook, but I know on Instagram, I'm getting asked to collaborate every 3 days on a new thing, promoting the tour, or talking about the previous show.
Yeah. Well, you know what, man? In today's music industry, man, I guess being busy is a good thing. You know what I mean? It really is.
Well, idle hands are the workshop of the devil. I'd rather stay busy, because if I don't stay busy, I'll definitely stay destructive.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate this, Damien. This was really special. A lot of fun, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you in December at the show, man.
Definitely, man. We'll keep in touch. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Take care.
Later, Damien.
All right.
There he goes, folks. Damien Sisson, Death Angel. My favorite. Listen, I talk up a lot of bands on here. I love a lot of music. I love my metal. I spent a lot of my life changing favorite bands because something gets in your head, gets in your ears, gets in your soul, and you're excited about it. And you want to make a commitment. Hey, this is my favorite band. No, you know what? Now that I've heard that, this might be my favorite band. But I always circle back, and it really is always Death Angel for me, man. Just something about them just really has always resonated with me ever since they first burst onto my radar way back when I was a teenager. Not only do they seem like, you know, and not now that I'm talking to Damien on the podcast, I've had Will on, and as I mentioned in my little story at the end, I got a chance to hang out with Will. He was very gracious in getting me down to one of their shows. It was me personally that didn't really enjoy the in-person interview process. That's my own hang up. I just like doing it remotely here in my own home studio. And I've realized that now after having gone out and trying to do a few of them. But Will, super gracious. And now since trying to interview him in person, I have had, obviously people know, I've had him since on the actual podcast. And it was great chopping it up with him. When I went to that show, I got a chance to see Ted outside the bus, got a quick picture with him, walked around the streets around the venue, bumped into lead singer Mark with his earbuds in, walking and getting a little exercise himself, took a picture, chopped it up with him for a few minutes. So I think what really resonates the most with me is that they are just, at the end of the day, great guys. And I will always throw my support behind great music. But when great guys are making that music, and granted, I know them on a very peripheral basis, but, you know, I think they really are who they are, and they really seem like fantastic guys. People might say, well, you don't really know them. No, I mean, you know, my viewers and subscribers don't really know me. Maybe I'm a complete dick behind the scenes too, man, but I hope people see the person that I am on here and the way I interact with my guests and say, you know, Rexx is a pretty good guy. Seems like he has a good rapport with these guests that he has on, and the conversations are informative and fun. And I would probably say that Rexx is a decent dude, which, you know, I'm going to obviously agree with because I am a decent dude. But point being, I feel like the Death Angel guys really are authentic, genuine, wholehearted, decent guys. And they just happen to make ass-kicking, face-melting fucking music. So there's that too. So listen, if you don't know Death Angel and you're coming to them because you just saw this interview or my interview with Will, do a deep dive, check out their discography. Mark, one of the best voices in metal, and the whole band that he has behind them are just phenomenal players. Damon is a fantastic bass player. Will is a beast of a drummer. Ted and Rob are monster guitar players. They are really just an incredible band. And when you see them live, they are a sight to behold. I mean, they are really a band that fires on all cylinders. The exuberance, the enthusiasm that they play with and that they attack with on stage and on their albums. They literally leap right off the record player, your earbuds, your device, whatever you're listening to them on. They really have a ferocity and an intensity to their music. And not that other thrash and metal bands don't, but there's just something special about Death Angel to me. That being said, thank you so much to Damien Sisson for coming on today. And again, also want to shout out his girlfriend, who also had a hand in facilitating this, putting it together for me. So I really appreciate those guys, man, and look forward to having Damien on again. So now I'll go into my obligatory promotional mode. I was doing that when Damien popped into the room. The pimp hand, even after an hour-plus conversation, is still feeling strong. I got to pimp it, folks. So here we go. Make sure to tap into PodScum on Facebook. The handle is Off the Couch Boxing and PodScum. You'll get updates on new episodes, when they're going to drop, who will be on said episodes, and any other big pertinent news. If it's popping off in the music world, the arts world, the rock and roll world, the entertainment world, pertaining to Off the Couch Boxing, in the fight game and in the boxing world, your boy Reckless Rexx is going to keep you in the loop, keep you informed. So it's more than just updates on the podcast and stuff pertaining to the podcast. Anything that comes on my radar, if it's newsworthy and noteworthy in either one of those worlds, boxing, music, and arts and entertainment, I got you covered, man. Go there. You will definitely be informed. Same thing with Instagram. Tap in. Trying to be better. You guys know, 52 years old. I didn't grow up in the technological era. I'm an old dog trying to learn new tricks, but someone got my ear and said, Rexx, get a little more active on your Instagram. It's where all the kids are going nowadays. You got to be on there. You got to be a presence on there. So I'm trying, taking little snippets, excerpts from these conversations, reels as they call them on there, whatever the fuck they're calling them. So I'm trying. So tap in with us on Instagram. Same handle, Off the Couch Boxing and PodScum on Instagram. And of course, if you're watching right now, this is where you're going to get your meat and potatoes right here. These epic conversations like the one we just had with Damien Sisson. Get with us here. Like, subscribe, smash that notification bell. It's up there in the upper regions of your screen. Being as that it's a notification bell, look for it to be bell-shaped. That'll be your first clue. Should be the only one you need, folks. Find it, smash it. That way you'll be tapped in, you'll be privy, you'll be in the know when something drops. New content every week. Sometimes it's an episode, sometimes it's multiple episodes, depending on how generous I feel. But you're always going to get weekly content. And I like to surprise you guys. I like to throw you little curveballs, bonus episodes. You get one, you might think that's it for the week, and boom, next day I might hit you with another one. Just depends on how many interviews are rolling in and what kind of content I'm sitting on and how quickly I can release it to you guys. But hope you guys enjoyed that episode, man. That was a blast for me as a Death Angel fan, having Damien on. So I really appreciate him. Shout out to him. Do your homework. Go check out Death Angel. If they're coming to a town near you, go see him. This is where I get on my soapbox about supporting your artists. Get out there to a show, buy an album, buy some merch, and lift our artists up, folks. And also tap in if you're interested in Damien's journey with his record label, Shake and Bake Records. You can check them out on all the socials as well. Sounds like he really really has a vision and a goal for that, and it sounds super interesting. And I love all the ideas that he has and thinking outside the box and really trying to make it something special. So tap in, Shake and Bake Records, Death Angel, and of course, keep it tapped in with PodScum and Off the Couch Boxing. And thank you again to the viewers, the subscribers, and of course, at the end of the day, the guests, without whom I would not be able to do this. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until we get together and we do this again, this is your boy, Reckless Rexx, reminding you to take it easy and keep it sleazy.